Good day, Grangers.
And welcome to the hall.
I'm Phil.
I'm Megan.
And welcome to the Grange Hall podcast. Today, we are here showcasing one of the newest voices in the Grange, working to highlight our diverse backgrounds. Today, we are joined by Victoree Jamiel, who goes by Victor. Victor's a member of Roy Grange in Washington. So, Victor, why don't you tell us a little bit? Yes, it's me and the West Coasters today. Victor, we're going to start tonight. Can you give us a little bit of the history of your Grange tonight?
Well, Roy Grange was started back in May 12th, 1919. We became incorporated May 1st, 1930, by a man named Fred Chamberlain. He organized this. So we kind of had some history notated, but not a lot of history on us. We have an original building that, matter of fact, is still here in town, but the building that we're currently in came from one of the Army bases near us called Fort Lewis. And it's an old World War II Army barracks that they have given to us. And they took this top half of it off. And now we have our Grange Hall kind of based on that. So I really think, based on kind of what I've been noticing in the Granges, we have, I think, probably the most unique hall, because it's not really a hall, but it's fitting for our town because we're a military town.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And we sit on a creek called Mutt Creek. So we have this beautiful creek that runs to the back of our Grange.
Okay, so just because I will say this too, and I have insider knowledge because I live here and I've been to Roy Grange. Where is the original Grange at? Because I've been to the Army Barracks Grange that you're talking about. I didn't even know there was an original Grange. And where is the original Grange? How far away is it from?
Walking distance. So literally, if you're standing on the porch of our Grange, it is, I believe, the white building that is to our right, kind of cat a corner around that corner.
And why is that building not used anymore?
That building is now, I believe, was bought by what is those people that LeMay. The building was bought by LeMay.
So for everybody who doesn't live in Washington, LeMay is there's a car museum, so they're a car family, and they have multiple locations. So that's cool. I didn't know that. That's so interesting.
Yeah, so from what I was told, that's what they bought it, and it's supposed to have like automotive stuff, kind of, I guess, housed in it, all their kind of old cars.
Yeah, there's a private collection. I didn't realize that's where it was. That's super cool. Awesome. Yeah, I didn't know that.
That's neat. All right. So talk to me about your area of Washington. Like, what part of Washington are you in? I know nothing about Washington other than that. Like,
let's school
on one side and Spokane's on the other. So where are you?
We are at the very end of Pierce County, beginning of Thurston County. So I usually clown around and tell people we are in the back of nowhere. If you look up, you know it's true, Megan. If you look up Fort Lewis McChord Air Force Base, we are right smack dab kind of in the middle of it. Our town is kind of, though there's a city part and there's an unincorporated part. The actual city part of our town has less than 1,000 people. Last census they took was less than 1,000 people in our town. The unincorporated section of our town, they really didn't have like a count on it. But our town is super, super small. Everybody kind of knows everybody. We're all interconnected somehow. And literally, you drive through our town and it's like 5 minutes, you're done.
So where Megan and I are both kind of suburban,
right?
You are more embodying the rural side.
Oh, we are all rural.
Well, and let's just talk about this. Like, I live in Tacoma, Washington, which is like Western Washington. We talk about Western Washington, Eastern Washington. Like Phil was saying, like he knows where Seattle is and Spokane is. Like Seattle is Western Washington, Spokane is Eastern Washington, total opposite sides of the state. So Tacoma and Roy are south of Seattle. So I'm south of Seattle, and then Roy is even further south.
We don't even have a stoplight in our town. I don't think we even have. We might have a few stop signs, but we don't have a stop
sign. There's a stop sign right by the Grange.
Yeah, but it's not many of them. But we don't have any stoplights. Nothing. Like, I think the livestock outnumber the people. Seriously.
Oh, that sounds like where I grew up. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Okay,
but it's not.
I'm getting the picture.
But it's 45 minutes, not even from Tacoma. I mean, how far away from Tacoma is it? It's not that.
But depending on how you drive and which back roads you take,
right,
it can take anywhere between 20 minutes to 45 minutes to get back into this kind of Tacoma, Puyallup kind of area. Like if we're going to Fruitland Grange, it's about a 45-minute.
Okay. I do know where Puyallup is.
Puyallup.
Puyallup.
Not Puyallup. Sorry, we have a bunch of weird names here in Washington, and they're not weird. I shouldn't say that. They're not
No,
weird,
they're
but we have a bunch of unusual sounding names in Washington, and Puyallup is one of them. And I live
yeah.
very adjacent to Puyallup, so I hear it all the time.
So Vic,
Okay.
how did you come to the Grange? What was it about the Grange that spoke to you? How did you get involved? What's your Grange story?
So I was actually working at the state fair in Puyallup during COVID. I was working for a friend, and she had a business, and we were doing COVID testing. And so I happened to be at the sportsman event,
Yeah.
and Granger was there. She was doing her Dutch oven cooking. Quick plug for one of our events. She was doing her Dutch oven kind of cooking setup, and um, we were just slammed with people coming in trying to get to the event and needing to do COVID testing. That lunch breaks and things to just put in our mouth to get food didn't happen. So she was bringing over snacks for us hot off the cast iron. So she would make biscuits, scones, whatever, and she would bring it over hot and fresh. A lot of times she's like just opening your mouth and she's chucking it in because we were just that swamped with people. And so as the event kind of wrapped up over the weekend, I said, people just aren't nice like this anymore, especially during COVID. You know, people just aren't nice like this to us. And she invited me to the baking competition when she found out I was a baker. And I was like, ooh, I don't do competitions because I don't like failing. I don't like to feel like a failure. She was like, oh, it's not even like that. It's not even like that. Just come check it out. So I put in some entries, showed up to the Grange Hall, and I watched people that I clearly know invented teaspoons or baked Jesus's first cake walking in with entries. And I was like, what are you doing here, Vic? Like, there's no way you could ever win anything against people that have been baking and cooking for that long. Long story short, the Grange welcomed me in all of who the fabulousness of Vic. They had no issues with me, loved on me. Matter of fact, I dropped off my entries and stayed several hours later just talking with some of the Grangers. And it was just such a welcoming environment. And I was like, this doesn't kind of happen anymore, especially with what was going on in the world with COVID and how people were just mean, you know, just mean nastiness in the world. And I was in awe of this actually being a place to come and have this type of feeling to where I could walk in and just be able to be free to be me. And so when I went back the next day for Pomona to check out to see if I won anything and kind of pick up my stuff, I attended the Pomona meeting and watched them open the Grange in form, and I saw people marching, and my feet started swinging as I'm sitting there on the bench in Fruitland because my grandparents were Masons and Eastern Stars. And so the formation of everything and the formality of what they were doing took me back to my childhood. And it started like, I started having this little feeling of like tickling in my belly. And I was like, this feels good. And God, you're funny. That the world is going through hell in a handbasket, and I lost my job, and I'm losing my mind being sitting at home. And you send me to this group of people that just clearly just loved on me and is encouraging me and are just happy to see me here. And I signed up and never left the Grange 3 years later.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So I want to dig in a little bit further. And Vic, you know, you and I know each other, just so everybody knows, like we know each other outside of this podcast.
Yes.
I want to know how welcoming you feel like the Grange is in general, and let's talk about outside of Roy Grange.
The Grange has a lot more work to do outside of Roy Grange. We do. We absolutely do, but we're going to get there. We hope and persevere. We're going to get there. We have to have some willing people at the table that are going to go, yes, this needs to change to meet today's demands. I think California, Central Grange, California, they posted a picture of an invite for something that they're doing, and it caught my attention immediately. And I said, if I was not a Granger already, I would go check this out because they had a young person of color on there, and the dude had a fro. Seeing the fro was like, yes.
And so and so for people who aren't like enmeshed in Grange, like, you know, the three of us and people who are probably listening, but I want to make sure that people who are not enmeshed in Grange really understand Phil might kill me saying this. We have a diversity issue. We have a diversity issue with Grange. So I love you. I love Grange. We have a diversity issue. And so for me, you know, I walk into a place and just, I don't know that I've shared this on the podcast yet. Like, I have biracial children. So my children are, half white, obviously for me, and half Black. Their father is Black. And so to me, it's like, I want a place where I know my kids can go and feel safe and feel accepted and feel loved. And I still struggle with some Grange activities, with feeling like I could walk my kids into a room, and really, like, individual people, that's not the issue. Like, the issue isn't individual people. Individual people in general are loving within Grange. Like, I think that that's 100% true. People love on my kids all the time. But when you walk into a room and you can't see yourself represented around the table, like, I think that's where I start to see the issue. And so, like, I think, Vic, you are vitally important to Grange in the movement forward of where we can go as Grange, because I think you represent you there's an intersectionality, obviously, to what you represent. And so, I love the fact that you are so involved and now the president of Roy Grange, right? Congratulations.
Thank
So,
you.
I mean, so in that, it's like, it's really encouraging to see you moving forward in your journey too, because it means, like, I can bring my kids in and say, look, there's people that you can emulate, that look like you, that, sound like you, that,
Hair texture like you,
right.
all the above. Seriously,
Exactly.
yeah, I so get that. That's why when I saw the one from the Central California, I was like, they probably don't understand to the depth of what they just did, because for someone who's a person of color,
Yeah.
we're taught to assimilate, and so our hair has always been an issue in the world, to
Right.
where it doesn't look tamed, or it's unkept, or it's not professional. And so we just now have a law that's been, I guess, put in place to where jobs can't discriminate against us because we wear locks or we have an afro. So for I think it's Central California Grange to put out a picture advertising that they're doing something for Grange, and it had a person of color with a fro, I was like, hell yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's what it's about.
Right.
That's what it's about. People need to see themselves. And if they don't, then they're not going to attend, because I get it all the time. Why are you with the Grange? That's weird. And ain't nobody, they got queer people in there. Ain't nobody Black in there. Ain't no this. So we have a lot of work to do. We really do, because what we're putting out as an image does not resemble who we say we are as Grangers, and we welcome everyone. We don't care what your background, who you sleep with. That none of that matters to us, because it says it in our manual. It says it in here.
Look at that. Manual comes out of nowhere.
It's
I think Vic carries that around in his back pocket. Like, let's be honest.
To be fair, mine is on my bookshelf on the other side of my TV. So
mine's within 2 feet of me too, if that makes you feel better. Like, it's right there on my desk. So okay.
I do. It's in my if it's not in my back pocket, it's close by.
You are right. Like, so I'm gonna throw a little history in here, and that the Grange.
Yes, please. Phil is our historian. Bring it, Phil.
So we were quite progressive as an organization when we were formed, and there were Granges in the Deep South that were formed entirely of people of color, like former slaves that were coming together to figure out how to set up farms and that kind of stuff on their own. And over time, they faded out for a variety of reasons. And the Grange kind of got stuck in this trench of well, I said the word earlier while Victor and I were waiting for Megan to sign on, was of homogeny. And we have this problem of people, we look the same, we tend to live in the same kinds of areas, we seem to represent the same kind of people, and the world is changing faster than I think a lot of Grange members were ready to change. And so it's taking a lot of time for us to become, again, the progressive order that we were and that we stood for when we were founded. It's just taking us some time to find that footing again and to welcome people back in and show that there is a voice for anybody within the Grange. And I don't think you can say the same in a lot of other fraternal organizations who still have a lot of closed door policies and still have a lot of, secret rituals and stuff. And sure, the Grange we still have some of those too, theoretically. But we are getting there. And, a couple years ago, we founded the Diversity Task Force, which, Victor, you're a member of. So it's to examine our structure and our policies and the things that we do and figure out where we can do better and where we need to change and where we are okay, but just need to be more open about what we mean when we say these things.
Right.
So absolutely.
I'll get off my little
No. I think it's really important. I think it's really important. Like, I think it's, and that's, in inviting Vic to come and talk, like, this is one of the things that I wanted to get into, as deep as we could, is that I just feel like I can't speak as, a cisgendered white woman very well on diversity, other than I can speak as a mother. But that's about it. Like, I can't speak as a diverse person, a person who has lived the life of a person of color, or, all the things. So I feel like Vic's voice is important in this. So that's where,
I tell people all the time, I am very proud to be representing the Grange and being a transgender person of color that holds an office not only in their Grange, also in the Pomona. Like, when I took office as assistant steward, to probably be the first trans person to hold an office within the Grange, that was dope and an honor. So,
yeah.
We definitely are making progress, and
right.
the fact that now our Grangers are starting to be cognizant of what they're putting out in social media, making sure that it's actually looking like what we want to reflect and bring in, I think is amazing. So we're getting there, baby steps, but we're getting there.
And it takes for a lot of people, especially people of older generations and people in rural areas even, it takes meeting one person sometimes to open the door and to be that.
Well, having a personal connection. I mean, like,
Yeah.
I think that's the thing, is like, if you've never had a personal connection with, I mean, I would hope that we don't live in a world where somebody hasn't had a personal connection with a person of color, but they may not have had they may not have a personal connection with someone that they knew was transgendered, or knew was, as homosexual or of a different sexuality than them. All those things. It's like, they may not have just known they were having those personal connections. So to have someone who's open like you, Vic, is a breath of fresh air, because it's not only, it's like, here, look, we all, put our pants on one leg at a time. Like, it doesn't matter, like you said, like, what goes on, otherwise, like, we are who we are. And as a Grange, like, I think we have this ideology of, like, how do we make our communities better? And, like, I love the fact that, like, this is a very rural community that may not be super accepting of you, but you want to make it better anyway. I mean, I think they are, but, like, I'm just saying, like, in a rural community, as a transgender, person of color, I can't imagine that there's not some opposition there. So,
Well, and Vic has such a big personality too. Like, when I think the very first Zoom that I ever met Vic on, I believe, was your profile name was Cowboy Vic. And
so
like,
yes.
like,
So
that was denying, like, there's a big personality behind this person too. Like,
yeah, I started using Cowboy, so that way some of the elders and people in this community wouldn't address me as she, her. I figured if they saw Cowboy, they would catch it. And that's why I shortened my name to the male version. So my name is gender neutral, but Victor is more masculine. That helps people get to know Vic. And then as we develop a relationship and we grow as Grangers, then you can begin to learn a little bit deeper about trans people and non-binary people and genderqueer. But for right now, the door's already been open, and you have met a trans person. And so when they go to the polls to vote, they're going to be much more careful now on how they vote, because they're going to, ooh, this impacts Vic.
Vic, that's right. That is absolutely right.
These.
Yes.
That is absolutely right. So I want to know a little bit about what's going on in Roy Grange these days. And I'm going to pick out of you, because I really want you to talk about what your hobby is and what your passion is, because I know that happens at your Grange. So go ahead, tell us.
Well, which hobby, which passion? Like cooking?
Okay, whatever. All of them. Tell all of them. But I'm really thinking about the dancing. The dancing is really what I want to hear about.
Well, I wish our hall was big enough for dancing. In the future, I would love to start a country cardio class. But I think our Grange just is not super big enough quite yet for that. I mean space wise, we have to do some work on our building. So if our building expands space wise, we can have a bigger floor. Then absolutely. But right now, our Grange has kind of been focusing on ag. We're getting a community garden going, because our next town over, we're noticing that it's really developing, and we're seeing more apartments being built, which means urban farming. And so we've been trying to learn how to do some urban farming, container bucket farming type of stuff, using what people have left over. And you might go to, let's say, Habitat, and see a bunch of gutters. Gutters might be 25 cents. and you could afford to get 4 gutters, to start your herb garden. So learning how to do those type of things and having them at our Grange then makes farming and everything much more sustainable for people, and it's not having to cost them a lot of money. And I really believe when we were able to start teaching people how to grow their own food and whatnot, we're empowering them, and that's going to help them get them off of systems like food stamps and other things, so where they can become relying on themselves
Right.
to take care of themselves. So I really think that's big right now. So our Grange has kind of been focused on that and getting just events and classes for people to come in. So like I said, we have our community garden that we started kind of working on. We have some starts going. We're going to be building some garden beds in upcoming weeks because some of our Grangers came from school with me. So we're all construction people. And so we're just excited to start teaching people how to grow their own food. Grow what you eat. The stuff in the grocery store is crap anyway. It's much better when you grow it yourself. So
Right.
it's something about being able to pick your own tomato fresh to go put on the burger that you just made. And if we can
And the
empower
fact
people,
that you're addressing that, and the fact that you're addressing the, the need to urbanize the mindset around being able to grow your own food, because there is a movement here. I mean, I know that there is, maybe all over the country, but I've heard there's a movement here about how do we urbanize, farming? How do we make it so people who live in urban settings can grow their own food? And so I think it's such an interesting concept, and that's really cool that you guys are focusing, even as a rural Grange, you're focusing on urbanization of the ag community. So very cool.
Well, and it's the
thank you. It's part of
accessibility.
part of charity. What we're supposed to be doing, and I hope other Granges kind of start looking at that as well. Don't try to just look at your neighborhood. What's your neighbor next to you? What's that next town over? How's that looking? What do they need? What do they need help with?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Can we go back to like your origin story in the Grange? You were talking about, was it cast iron Dutch oven cooking? What was that? What is that?
So that is an upcoming event by one
Okay.
of our Grangers. Her name is Deborah. She's from our Fruitland Grange over in Puyallup, and she's the person who I met at the event I was working at. So I call her my canning fairy godmother. She's amazing, and so she's coming out to our Grange to teach kind of some of the old school chuck wagon ways of cooking, and we're going to have a big old cookout in the front lawn of our Grange, and she's going to talk about the history of chuck wagon cooking and cast irons, and she sells those at different markets and events. So she's amazing. She travels and does this, and so she came to me and she was like, "I want to do this at your Grange." All right, sure. Let's pick a date and kind of go from there. And the last time I think I looked online at our event, it's already kind of outreached and hit over 400 something people.
Wow.
So just the fact that it's touching that many people, not saying that they're all going to show up. If they do, God help us, because our Grange is only for 99 people, but we're going to make it work. But the fact that that many people it outreach to and they've gotten some interest in it is huge, is huge. And again, what if the power grids go down? You have no way of, being able to be in your house and cook. You need to know how to get outside and cook the old school way. And so again, empowering people so that way they don't have to be reliant on the assistance of government or the assistance of this. Get back to the roots of what kind of who we were as people, period. Indigenous, enslaved, whatever. People, period. We cooked outdoors for many, 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 many years without all the luxuries. Let's go back to learning that, the simplicity of that.
I love that. There's an event every other year that's done by Grange members. It's not a national Grange event called Grange Revival, where we go camping for a week, and there is a Dutch oven dessert element to this, where one night everybody brings a Dutch oven dessert, and it encourages people to be cooking in their cast iron skillets, cast iron Dutch ovens over the campfire. And I love that. While it's a home skill, it's also something that people can use today and kind of brings people together. Nothing brings people together more than food, first of all.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So,
I still have my grandmother's Dutch oven that I cook in.
Wow.
Yes.
That's cool.
And okay.
That's very cool.
I'm jealous.
So I want to know, and I think this is probably going to be the bulk of our discussion. Where do you see the Grange going in the future? On a large scale, on a small scale, whatever, what are your ideas? What do you think?
I see the Grange growing in the future as a stronger resource and learning center for our towns. Like back in the day, the Grange was the hub. We were the veins, we were the arteries. Everything came and went from us. Somewhere along the lines, that kind of stopped in some of our areas. So I think getting back to that is going to be crucial for the Grange to keep going. Crucial. We don't have enough classes because there's no home ec in schools anymore. They don't really teach shop in schools anymore. They're not even teaching them how to do cursive and how to, write legibly. So I think that needs to fall kind of back on us. We need to start back teaching that, and it needs to happen back in our Grange halls. Our Grange halls need to become our after school program, our community service centers, the place where you can just drop off your kids and know that they're going to be okay because they're there at that class and that Grange Meemaw has them. They're good.
Mm.
I love that. So that's at the local level. And how do you envision helping other Granges reach that point and find those needs?
The same way how we're connected now. So because you're on the East Coast, I may not be able to get to you, but we can sure enough connect through Zoom or different media outlets to where we can have these type of meetings and we can bounce ideas off each other. We create these Facebook groups to where we can exchange and connect with one another. I'm so always trying to connect people to our activities page on Facebook. So you can see these other Granges and get ideas and see what they're doing and what works for them and try them out for you. So
Right.
on that national level, I think that same thing, nationally becoming a stronger resource and learning center as a national Grange for all of us. And then it's that trickle down effect.
That's one of the reasons I love, for anybody who subscribed to Good Day magazine, just going to put in a little plug there. Good Day has that recipe section in the back, and we since 2022 have had this agritourism feature going where every quarter we're focusing on a different area of the country and saying, look at these farms that you can visit, look at these places that you can go and learn and experience and get back to the earth.
Absolutely.
And
I
the
think you
recipe
published one, but that was a restaurant. That was a Grange restaurant or
yeah,
something
that
like
was
that.
there's a restaurant
In
in
Tennessee.
Nashville called the Grange Restaurant.
I was like, get out of here.
I wish they used Grange recipes. They don't. It would be really cool if they did.
Oh, that would be cool.
They do have some Grange cookbooks though on display in
Mm-hmm.
the restaurant. So it's really cool that they're one of our trademark licensees. So
Okay.
they're really cool. And it's great to be able to feature these things and to encourage people to get back to the roots and to do the handcrafts. And I think that's why National Grange contests in the way are so important. Like we still have the quilt block contest, encouraging
Okay.
people who might not have a connection to quilting to try it and see what happens, you know?
Well, and I think that these are traditional things that are passed down, and I think it's hard. I mean, I can sit here and say like I will never be a quilter. I'm not going to do it. Whatever. That's awesome. But they are traditional. They are traditions that can be handed down, and there are people who want, like it just we just. I'm worried that we're going to lose these arts, right? And it's like you were talking about, Vic, about losing the ability to create your own food, to grow your own food, to cook your own food, even like that's the other thing is like so many kids think that the food comes from the grocery store. They don't understand that the food is grown someplace, or the animals are raised someplace, like all these things. And it's like, how do we make sure that those traditions stay alive and are in a way, and they're pervasive. They're not just for rural communities, because I think
Yeah.
that's the other important aspect of this, is that it's not just for rural communities, because the reality is even though I live in the suburbs, I still want my kids to understand where their food comes from, right? Like I think that's really important. So
Yeah, the school I attend now, I'm the TA in the construction class, and so we still do. My capstone project was actually a container garden type of resource center, to where we were going to flip a cargo container, turn that into a classroom. And so I was creating this agricultural type of center. The garden is still there and growing, and now our construction department has grown because people have come in and seen the sustainability section of that garden and go, yes, this makes sense. I want to come in, learn how to rebuild, take care of my own issues at home. And at the same time, the bonus, I get to learn a little bit of ag. So people are definitely wanting this, and it's a need for it. We brought in eggs, and the kid was like, why are the eggs dirty? Because they're unwashed. I mean, so they don't know. So opening their eyes to this, so that way they can kind of see and learn that, yes, you don't have to live rural just to be farming.
right. And how do we further how do we look to the future of diversity in the Grange on the national level? Like what do we need to do? Like what is your vision? Or maybe, I might be putting you on the spot, but like what do you think about how we can continue to further the message of everyone's welcome, anybody's welcome, doors are open, it doesn't, none of these things matter, so that people know that they can walk into a Grange anywhere in the nation and be welcomed. Like, how do we work on that? What do we do?
First, it's our advertising. So people need to see themselves. So when we continuously use photos that don't have any people of color, are not showing the type of diversity, not showing the range of people that are heterosexual or queer, trans, where we're not showing truly who we are. And I know we're in the Grange, but we're not showing that. Then yes, it begins to continue to look the way it is. So we have to start with what are we putting out? And we kind of talked about that before within diversity, utilizing images of our Grangers. So that way people know they can connect to you. It's one thing if I just see a stock photo and I go to that Grange and I'm looking for the person in that stock photo and I don't see them. I want to connect to a human being. I want to know what your story is.
Right.
What is it that about? That's what's going to draw me. Like I said, that Central California Grange. I would want to go looking for that young man. Because the fact that you're a Granger and you get to be just who you are and no one says anything about you having your fro out or calls it weird or wants just, yes, that's a Grange I would feel comfortable in. Yeah. I want to go to. So we have to kind of start in that fashion. Use our own members to tell our story and share that with the world.
Absolutely.
And knowing that you're on I'm sorry, it's a diversity council. What's the name of the group?
Oh, the National Diversity Task Force.
National Diversity Task Force. Thank you very much. I knew there was a title. I just couldn't come up with it. Tell me a little bit about the work that you're doing there, because that's definitely furthering this cause. So
yeah, so right now, currently, we kind of just came back into meetings, and now with our worthy president Chris kind of at the helm, she's kind of challenged us to figure out exactly what our kind of main goals are going to be for this year, what we want to focus on. And right now, kind of at the moment, we're just trying to we're talking about three main things, and we're going to kind of start to narrow those down as to what we want to put out. And I know we want to make sure that whatever we put forth, the language is inclusive, and we have to make sure that we're able to bring our elders into the conversation and not have them kind of steer away because we've been told too sensitive or whatever. So it's National Diversity Task Force. We got some thick boots to have to pull up and wear to walk through to get the Grange where we need to be, but we're going to do it. We're going to do it. So yeah, we
so
meet.
Encouraging. It's so encouraging that we have that. Like, it's so encouraging that there's a group of people that are working on it. So
it's so funny when Amanda connected me to Robert and said, you should check out this group. And I saw who he was, and I was like, my brother. I didn't know you was in this.
Yeah, we'll have Rob on another podcast here coming up soon. So
awesome.
But just seeing Robert and meeting Robert, it was like, right, exactly. Because I got tired of telling people, no, I'm not the only Black person in the Grange. I know more of us.
You're not. So it's so funny in that I think you might be one of the most visible ones or most vocal as far as people of color in the Grange, but they are in pockets all over the country.
Absolutely.
They just haven't risen to being involved outside of their Grange. Right. And I think that's what makes me so excited about you, is that you haven't stayed so insular in Roy, and that you immediately got yourself involved in everything that you could. And because you wanted to learn more, you wanted to learn the history, you wanted to learn what the organization was. And I think some of that might come from your grandparents' connection, to the fraternal side of things, but you didn't let that or anything about the Grange hold you back from being uniquely yourself. And I think sometimes, from my own personal point of view, you feel like you have to put yourself in a box sometimes to fit in outside of where you started. And I think that's what gives me so much hope for the future of the Grange, is that people who look like you and people who have your background are willing to step forward now and are starting to come out of the shadows and say, no, I am a proud Grange member, and I'm proud to be a Grange member because the Grange is proud to have me here too.
Absolutely. It's funny that I come from Masons Eastern Stars, but I could never officially be a Mason.
Right.
Because I'm transgender. Right. And that sucks, because I looked up to them, and I remember as a kid watching my grandparents get dressed in their regalia. watching them march around the hall, and like my grandfather, my grandma, they could cut a corner so sharp, like it was no joke. And the stuff that we did as Masons and Eastern Stars, so I never wanted to be an Eastern Star. I wanted to be a Mason. They had cool outfits. It was always sharp and clean cut, so I like that. I was like, I want to be a Mason, but now I have my opportunity and I get to honor their lineage and their history of what they did. And we're doing the same things, Masons and Grangers, just we're on the ag side of it. That's all.
Well, and our ritual is based on the Masonic ritual as well. Like our founders were Masons, and that's actually, brief history tangent, that's one of the things that allowed Oliver Hudson Kelley to be as successful as he was in the South and to be able to talk to the farmers, is that he was a Mason. So he could connect to the other Masons in the area and talk to them, and he was allowed in because of his Masonic background. And in the same way, then the Grange sort of did the same thing, and people become friends and talk to one another because they're Grangers. So
well, there's an amazing community and network. Like that's the thing, is there's an amazing community and network, and you can stay at the local level and do nothing beyond your local Grange. Like that is something that is 100% on the table, whatever. But I will say, being somebody who's brand new to the Grange, the sky is the limit if you want to get involved. Like you can really go, you can dig in and get as involved as you want to. And make a difference. Like I think that's the other thing, is it's like, it's not just get involved to volunteer and do all the things, but it's like get involved to see the change that you want to see for the for the organization that you love. And so that's my encouragement to anybody who's listening out there that may be a Granger, is like, you have the we are a very democratic system. Like you can write a resolution that can go all the way up to the national level if you want to see something change about the way we do business and about what's written in the policy about da 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 da. Like all of that is part of what Grange is, and it's encouraging as a person, as a progressive person, to know that if I don't like the way something's being done, I can help change that. I have the ability. Vic has the ability, Phil has, anybody has the ability, anyone within the Grange has the ability to help change that. So
you're a prime example, Megan. Like last year was convention state, we went, and I was like, okay, we coming, and y'all better realize Pierce County, we coming with the thunder, because I got some folks coming with me this year. We went. And now look, you're working with national communication. So
I think they wanted me to not be there a couple of times. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, well.
I'm like, wait, I have a question. And then the answer is, well, that's the way we've always done it. And I'm like, I have another question.
That is not an answer.
It's not the answer that I wanted to hear, for sure. No, but that's, I am a natural disruptor. Like that's who I am as a person. And so when I walk into the room, I'm like, how can we make it better? And so but again, like this is not an organization that you can't do that in. Like nobody's saying I can't do it. Now it might be uncomfortable. Like like change is always uncomfortable, but no one's saying you can't do that. And so that's what I really enjoy about, Grange in general, is no one's saying, no, sit down, Megan, like you don't have a voice. I have a voice just like anybody has a voice in this organization. And that's what's really important to me. So,
the thing is always, when the table gets build a longer table,
Say it again.
I think I wouldn't have got up to speak during state at all had Megan not been like, Vic.
I didn't tell you to stand up and talk.
And I was like, okay, I'm gonna say
no, it was good. It was good because we were, and so if people understand what was going on, we were talking about a resolution. And so what happens is that individual Granges can write resolutions that get passed in their individual Granges and then go on to, the state level, and then they get debated, talked about, and voted on. And it's just like anything else. And this resolution was one that I was passionate about, and Vic was passionate about too. So we both got up and spoke about it, and we were not victorious, but that's okay. We lived to fight another day.
We sure do. But it made some people have to think, pull back, and now they're going to do the work that they need to do because it made them uncomfortable. Sure. And so this year, when we see you at state in Colville, hopefully some things have changed and you've grown as a Granger. I hope.
Yeah.
And that's
welcome to Washington State Grange politics.
we're the same in Pennsylvania. I'll just let you know. Like there's some of us that push a lot harder than others. So
but that again, that's what I love about this, because it's like, yes, there's the diversity of age, the diversity of culture, whatever. And it's like, no one is saying, just because I am brand new, I was brand new last year, just because I was brand new, I still had a voice. I was a delegate. I had a voice. I could stand up. I could vote. Like all of that was part of being there. And so it's that's what I love about Grange. There's nothing stagnant here. Like we can continue to move forward as an organization. And it is grassroots. It comes from the bottom up, because that is the way our system works. It comes from the local Grange and gets moved through the system up into state and national, which is amazing. It's amazing.
you said you called yourself a disruptor earlier, and I think that's I think
Yes.
that's the heart of being a Granger, though, is Grangers are disruptors. Like we see something in the community that needs to be done, we do it. We aren't afraid to be the people who step in.
Right.
And most Grangers, I've met very few Grangers who are afraid to voice their opinions. So like that's what we're there for. We have the rights and the ability to be the disruptors that our community needs. That's my new Gandhi phrase of the day.
I love it. I love it.
So Vic, do you have any final thoughts, anything before we let you go for the day?
I didn't think about a final thought. I mean, I start if your Grange looks, as Phil said, homogenous, start figuring out ways how you can get people in that don't look like you. If it's uncomfortable conversation that you're having, sit in it. What makes it uncomfortable for you? Why don't you want your Grange to grow? Why do you want your Grange to die off when you die off? Those type of things. Why don't you have children and a youth something in your Grange? Those are the things we need to start looking at. Grange cannot die off. It's time to pass the mantle. If you are struggling in your walker to even get up, you cannot be mad that degree work is not the way that it used to be. You're not the way you used to be either. So it's time for some things to change, and growth hurts when we change, but we will hope and persevere through it. We will. This manual was 150 something years ago, and it has a lot of good things in it of how to be really decent human beings. And I think more people in the world need to slow down and have a look at this and come sit and talk with us, just to be a decent human being. And that's what Grangers are.
Yeah. Well, and that's really that's what it is. It's what the Grange is all about. It's about how do we live in community well. And that, there's a lot of pomp and circumstance around that. Like, don't hear me wrong, which can be very confusing for people. But at the end of the day, everything that the Grange does is about how do we live well together as a community.
Absolutely.
And how could that ever be bad?
Right?
Absolutely.
Why I joined the Grange. Like, how could it ever be bad? So, yeah.
Yes. Well, if people are interested in finding out more about Roy Grange, they can look us up on Facebook. Roy Grange 702 is how they can find us on Facebook. They can also, we just started a Pinterest page, so that'll be upcoming, and I'll be sharing that as well. What's another way they can reach out? Oh, our email, roygrange _702 and all that is on our Facebook page, so people can look us up and kind of connect with us in that fashion and whatnot. And we're down to help people out as far as, like, if you want a Zoom meeting, what works as far as how we kind of grew our membership, because our membership is skyrocketing right now. And it's just because people are finding our events, and then when they walk through our doors, we treat them like their second cousins, third removed, that we haven't seen since Mima's reunion about 4 or 5 years ago. And so when they walk in the door, we treat them just like that, and they stick around and they stay.
Yeah.
I love that. Love it. Well, Victor, thank you so much for being with us today. Truly appreciate it. Love all the energy and the enthusiasm that you bring to the table, and the fact that you are unabashedly and unashamedly exactly who you are, living among the Grangers, which can be, scary sometimes. So thank you for being here. And
thank you for having me.
Of course. We will see you next time
at the hall.
The
Grange Hall Podcast is a production of the National Grange, all rights reserved. If you have comments or questions, or if you'd like to recommend a member of your Grange to be featured, you can contact us at grangehallpod@gmail.com.